Welcome to Episode 1 of the Supplier Approval Program video series. Kellerman Consulting releases weekly training videos and important tips and strategies to help companies keep up to date with the latest food safety regulations. I'm Jamie Miller, Registered SQF Consultant at Kellerman Consulting. In this episode, I'm going to discuss the process of approving suppliers as well as establishing and managing food manufacturer supply chains. Throughout this series, you will learn how to assess and reassess suppliers. You will also learn how to evaluate the risk level for suppliers that sell materials into a food manufacturing or food packaging operation based on the food safety information or documentation that they are able to provide. I will also address who should be leading these assessments and approval activities and how to properly communicate about suppliers within the organization. Additionally, I will review what documentation suppliers should be providing and what to do in situations where suppliers are unable or unwilling to provide the information requested in a reasonable amount of time. First, let's begin by exploring the foundations of supply chains and talk about what is appropriate and inappropriate for food facilities. When purchasing, it is important to note that each material has set safety requirements, and suppliers operate under differing efforts to meet those conditions of safety. Therefore, setting up and maintaining a supplier approval process that is able to identify and understand the varying degrees of safety risks for materials and suppliers can be a huge challenge to tackle. Harder still is the effort required to track down updated information each year, as suppliers may go through some major changes. Some suppliers may be purchased by another company. Some may change facilities or expand. Some introduce new allergens. Some get undesirable neighbors, and many deal with the expected wear and tear to their facility. Any of these events can add some risks to the previously assessed supplier. We hope that you will find new and helpful ways to manage your supply chain, regardless of how simple or complex that system is. Please do not rely solely on this information contained in the video series when creating your food safety program. It's important to ensure your food safety program meets all of the specific regulatory requirements associated with the product that you are manufacturing. The selection of suppliers has to start from a practical place, beginning with cost, availability, and the ability to match desired specifications for products. In the early stages of supplier selection, the purchasing, R&D, and sales teams are likely to drive the decision-making process. From there, the job of the quality team is to support those activities. Each department will typically come at this process with different objectives. Therefore, it is a common occurrence for conflict to occur early on in the supplier selection process. Sales initiatives may dictate a specialty flavor or texture. Trial batches have to be prepared and run through test kitchens or R&D labs. Full-scale production has to fit into the operations schedule, adding the need for marketing to advertise the new product, and it can become overwhelming to get the manufacturing process correct. The personnel responsible for food safety often have a limited amount of time and available information to determine if new products are safe, and also face the challenge of gathering adequate documentation from suppliers to identify ingredient and material safety risks prior to the launch of a new product. On the Kellerman Consulting website, we offer a free download in the free resources section, which explains the list of documents that you can request from suppliers, and we have suggestions regarding the priority level of obtaining each of these documents. From a food safety perspective, it is best practice to perform a basic risk assessment of the product and ingredients early on in the process. When we think about a risk assessment, this does not have to be an elaborate or fancy document, but rather a simple review of which ingredients or suppliers are high risk, which are lower risk, and the impacts those assessed risk levels may have on your operation. Some examples of low-risk scenarios would include formulations with 3 ingredients or fewer, each with long shelf lives that do not require refrigeration and only need minimal mixing. To be able to purchase from one or two suppliers that provide all of the documents you need to assess those ingredients would lessen the risk further. On the other hand, complex formulations with 15 or more ingredients, including specialty ingredients that can only be purchased from a very limited group of suppliers, or where careful handling and process of those ingredients is required, would greatly increase the risk level. When suppliers are not responsive to document requests, or where they don't seem to understand the documents asked for, these items purchased would be designated higher risk and may cause difficulties in the supplier approval process. You may ask, what is supplier approval and how is it different from selecting suppliers and ingredients as we just discussed? Supplier approval is a process of collaborating with various departments in your business to identify potential suppliers of ingredients or materials. To do so, the ingredients and materials must meet the set parameters for cost, order size, storage space, and so on, and then have the quality assurance team vet these potential suppliers through a process of reaching out to the suggested suppliers in order to assess the safety and risk level of these items prior to placing the item on your list of approved items for use in your facility. The supplier approval list, or log, is the official document that lets the team know the approved suppliers that they are able to purchase ingredients and materials from, and just as importantly, which suppliers are no longer allowed to be used for the purchasing of those ingredients and materials. When we are first developing and initiating products for the processing or handling, the supplier approval process may start out as a simple and easy to remember list identifying which companies are being purchased from and which ingredients are going to be used. However, as time goes on, formulas get tweaked for cost savings, ingredients first selected get discontinued, and customer feedback may lead to adjustments in formulas for reasons of preference. In each of these cases, switching from one supplier to another can get confusing, and for this reason, the supplier approval list is essential for the purchasing team and food safety team to stay on top of which suppliers and which ingredients are acceptable after the required changes are made. In our next episode of the Supplier Approval series, we'll discuss the manufacturers, brokers, agents, importers, and subcontracted entities and how to approach each for your supplier approval process. To learn more, visit our website and you'll find a full library of food safety training videos and resources. You may also follow us on LinkedIn and click the bell to be notified of new resources as they are released each week.